We have big energies coming up this week, especially June 14th, which is Flag Day. Happy Flag Day, everybody. It also happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. Happy birthday, Donald. And it also happens to be the Military Day Parade. Fun times, and probably a massive protest. Probably a continuation of the protests and riots that are happening right now in LA and a little bit across the US. I drew a card for this, and it happens to be temperance. So we're going to look at the energies coming up this week and a little bit beyond into July, and think about the temperance and the alchemical transmutation that is occurring with Jupiter in Cancer. It's very relevant to all of this going on. So let's take a look. We're going to start this off by looking at the Sibley chart, which is the natal chart of the United States of America. Quite famous. 1776, July 4th, 5:10 p.m. Philadelphia time. So this is the chart for the inception of the United States of America. And it's quite interesting. People use it a lot in predictive astrology, elective astrology as well. One of the most interesting things about it for me is that America is born in the sign of Cancer. It's a Cancer. People don't talk about that very much, but America is a Cancer, which means it has certain protective and nurturing, almost mother-like qualities. It has an emotional depth, and it wants to provide in certain ways. It wants to provide for the betterment of people, but it can forget about that and sometimes go into its dark Cancer personality, its dark Cancer mirror self, where it becomes perhaps a little overprotective and starts to clamp down on things. It takes its little pinchers and goes into its shell and becomes combative. It does have Sagittarius rising on its first house cusp, so it does look towards its own ideals. It is, of course, founded on philosophical principles that are found in the Constitution and in the Declaration of Independence. So America is philosophical in nature. It looks to its highest ideals here in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is here in Cancer, which is very important because Jupiter is now, as you know from previous videos, which I'm sure you watched on my channel. If you haven't watched it, go watch my video on the transit of Jupiter into Cancer, because Jupiter is entering. It has entered now. Actually, it's June 11th, and it's now in Cancer. So Jupiter is here at the 0 degree, and it's inching forward to have a Jupiter return in Cancer for America. It's going to be quite a celebrant day. Now, another thing to note is that its Sun in Cancer is on that second decan. It's in the 13th degree, which is ruled by Mercury, and also has the tarot card associated with it, which is the 3 of Cups, which is about celebration and joy and a little bit of collaboration, a little bit of drinky drink. You know, that's why July 4th is such a big big day. You get a big drink of your own emotional depth on July 4th, and we all go and celebrate the inception of the United States. And it has Jupiter right here, so we just go hog wild on July 4th with drinking and fireworks and all these crazy celebrations. So let's take a real deep look. Another thing let's talk about, which is important, is having America has Uranus here on its 7th house cusp, very close to it, in Gemini. And Gemini is going to enter in the next month into Gemini again for the first time in about 80 years. Last time it was in the sign of Gemini was World War II. So it's about to enter and have its own Uranus return. America having Uranus here on its 7th house kind of does lend itself to being rather blunt and brutal when it comes to friends and rivalries. It can be quite direct and sometimes maybe a little bit overreactive, a little overcorrective. It can come in a little bit hot sometimes to its rivals and enemies, and even its own friends, which is playing out quite a bit. So let's take a look now at the transits. And here we are. This inner wheel is the Simply chart. This is the birth chart of America on this little lighter blue wheel. And on this outer, darker blue wheel is June 14th. That this is Flag Day. This is going to be the great military parade. It also happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. He happened to be born on Flag Day, America's Flag Day. What are the chances of that? So we gotta look at this thing and we gotta talk about it because it's a big deal. One of the major things that is happening on this day is that we are coming into perfection of two very important aspects. And the first one is this: Mars and Uranus are coming into perfection of a square. Now, a square is a challenging aspect. They're going at each other. They're at odds. They're at heads. They are against each other. They are pushing at a square. And these are two very, very strongly motive and powerful planetary forces. Of course, Mars is that martial, forceful, very direct energy that can get fiery and combative at times. When Mars is the god of war, of course. And then over here we have Uranus, which is also very direct, brutal, and very sudden energies that come into catastrophic effect. Uranus has its ties, of course. You could kind of think of it as the Tower card in Tarot. It's very, very strong and very forceful. So both of these are coming into exact perfection on this day. So if you're going to have any direct confrontations, it's probably going to happen here. We have another very important square happening with Jupiter as it comes into perfection with a square with Saturn. Now, Jupiter is this great, big, benefic energy. It likes to give. It likes to... it has its ruling sign of Sagittarius. Both of those have their connection. Sagittarius being about the higher mind, the higher philosophy, the higher ideals, and Jupiter shares those, and it uses those to expand our world, to bring greater abundance, to bring higher learning, to expand the mind, to expand our material possessions, to bring abundance into our material lives and into our spiritual lives. And Saturn does the very opposite thing. It contracts our lives. It brings us into focus. It does this thing that when you bring contraction into a closed environmental system, that it heats things up as particles become contracted in an enclosed system. There are more chaotic energies happening. Saturn brings order and structure to our lives, sometimes at our own detriment, sometimes for our betterment. Sometimes our contraction under Saturn can be very difficult and challenging, sorrowful. We sometimes lose things in the process because as we grow and become constricted, aspects of ourselves must be lost. We lose. Sometimes we lose the fun and joy of life, the joie de vivre. So Saturn is, of course, if you're following astrology, in a very close aspect with Neptune, which is also about higher ideals. You can also get lost in illusions. It's the dream life. It is dissolution into structure, into dissolution. So these two things are having their own little battle here. Not necessarily a battle. It's difficult to say that that's a battle. It's more of a conjunction of energies, and it kind of feels like a battle because there's such strange and disparate energies from each other. Saturn is trying to bring things into order, while at the same time Saturn is dissolving things, previous structures. So there's this dissolution and reconstitution, dissolution and reconstitution that is happening there on that first degree of Aries. And Aries is a big deal. Being on the first degree of Aries is a huge deal because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is the inception of the cosmos. It is the inception of energies happening throughout time and space in our material reality. So the fact that these two big titanic forces are happening here at the cusp of Aries, at that cusp of creation itself, is a big deal. They have entered into this new sign. They have entered into this new energy. They have entered into this new cosmic realm and completed a cycle and come around through the zodiac and entered into the first sign of Aries. So these big forces are now coming into a new aspect and a new force. It's basically like a new era. We should really be thinking of this as a new era for that Saturnian and Neptunian energy. And they are in a very perfected square here with Jupiter in Cancer at the first degree. So that is a conflict of energies as well. This expansive force of Jupiter is in conflict with the contractive forces of Saturn and the dissolution energies of Neptune in that Aries house. Of also significance is that this is the fourth house cusp of America. And the fourth house is all about the home energies. It's about conservation of the home. It's about where we find safety and security. It's where we come back to. It's where we find ourselves in our safety. So these energies here are kind of like writing and rewriting that energy. They are erasing and rewriting energies here in the home of the American spirit, essentially, of the American essence. That's a big deal. There's a lot going on, and this is all happening on June 14th, Flag Day, the big military parade, and the possible protests that might be happening in counter to that. I sort of expect these protests that are happening in LA and that have been happening around the country to kind of come to a head on this day, because after this, these perfections will begin to move away. The squares will begin to dissipate, and they'll move into other aspects. So I think things will come to a head here, and we'll kind of move into a new energy. Now we are looking at this inner wheel is Donald Trump's birthday. This is June 14th, 1946, 10:54 a.m. in New York. This is where our president, 47th president, Donald Trump, was born in the cosmos. This is his chart. This is his natal chart. This is the outer ring is June 14th. So let's take a look at Donald's chart. He's got some interesting things. My favorite thing about Donald's chart, I gotta tell you, my favorite thing about it is that he has his sun conjunct the North Node. And the sun is, of course, about the ego. It's about the self. It's about how the self shines. And the North Node is the thing that you cannot get enough of. It is K2. It is the all-consuming force of the dragon. So Donald's all-consuming force is very focused on his own ego. He just cannot get enough of it. So here it is. It's having his solar return here. He also has Jupiter. He's born in Gemini. He's born in the sign of Gemini. So he's got Uranus also approaching. He's got Uranus in his own sign of Gemini and his sun sign. He's got Uranus quickly approaching his sign, and Lord knows what's going to happen when it enters his sign, and Lord knows what's going to happen when it transits. It's going to take a while for that to happen, so don't hold your breath or nothing. The other quite fascinating thing about his chart is that he is born, of course, with Mars on his ascendant. So he has this martial, combative, always fighting energy on his ascendant, on his forward aspect of his personality. It's how he comes off to other people. It's what he's always looking for. He's always looking for a fight. And he's always finding it because it's always there in front of him. It's like the carrot that's dangling in front of his face. The other fascinating thing about him is that he has Chiron, the wound, the wound of the soul here, conjunct his natal Jupiter. And that is right here in his second house of possessions. So he is quite... Jupiter is expanding that wound, that inner wound of needing more, wanting more and more, ever expanding wound. And so you can kind of see all these three energies, this Mars energy on the ascendant, this wounded, expansive energy in Libra, this feeling of injustice that he feels from the Libra energy, and that wounded sense of injustice that he constantly has, and the not ever having enough of himself. It's very fascinating. That Uranus square that is happening in his chart, that is happening on June 14th, is going to be happening very close to his midheaven, which is about how he is seen in the world. So I expect that as Uranus is sitting here kind of close to his midheaven, that he will be playing a very central role. It's also Mars. Look at Mars. Mars is coming into perfection with a return of his natal Mars. So we have Uranus at his midheaven and Mars at his ascendant. So this day is all about Donnie. It's all about Donnie. Take it, Donnie. It's all about you today on June 14th, the day of the parade. And this conflict is going to probably center around him intensely. The Jupiter and Saturn square is happening here, also kind of in his 10th house. It's in his 10th house. If you are using this house, if you're using the Koch house system, which I am here, it's in his 10th house, and Saturn is in his 8th house of little death. The little death, the surrender, the house of surrender. So I expect things to be very visible in Donald's life here. Another thing to note that's really kind of interesting about Trump's chart is that this full moon in Sagittarius that just happened here in the 20th degree was exactly conjunct Donald's natal moon and south node. It's conjunct with the south node. The south node being about past karmic energies, about his own past. His natal moon is kind of stuck in his past. His natal moon of intuition and deep feelings and past karmic energies is here with the sign of the planet of, or that is here with those very intense past karmic energies of the south node here in Sagittarius. And that full moon just happened here. So full moons are about release, and so whatever just happened to him was probably very intense. It had this trine going on with his natal Mars. So there was something very intense was released during this time in Donald Trump's chart. We have no idea what it was. We can't know what was going on inside of him. I don't think he even really knows what's going on because he has this opposition going on with his natal moon and his sun. So both his sun and his moon were conjunct in this full moon, but because his sun and his moon are opposite of each other, he probably does not have much of a connection to his own inner emotional life. That's my guess. He probably just has these big emotions come blurting out all the time, and he thinks they're rational thoughts. But they're really these deep-seated emotions that come from his past that he has not really rationally examined in any sort of way. They're just aspects of his ego. He just mistakes them for aspects of his ego, is my guess, based on my continuous experience of him in the media. But what do I know? I don't know nothing. Let's take a look at what's happening coming up. So this is that June 14th thing going on with we're back in the house chart of the United States, because I want to show you here what happens when we go to July 4th. This is very interesting. Here, we're just going to pull this up real fast. This is July 4th. And you'll notice that Jupiter jumped up a little bit, and so did the sun. We're having the solar return, of course, at 13 degrees. Yay, celebration. But also, Jupiter is having its return exactly almost to the minute here on July 4th. So not only is Jupiter moved into Cancer, not only is Jupiter expanding our own inner sense of needing to nurture and connect in more familial and tribal ways. Jupiter is working that Cancer energy and expanding it, expanding our sense of our need for security, our need for home, our need to connect with it, our need to have a greater sense of nurturing for one another. It's also connecting again to its birthplace in the American natal chart. So it's having a Jupiter return. America is having its Jupiter return. And a Jupiter return is a renewal of the promise set forth in the natal chart. It's about returning to those energies. It's about returning to that Cancerian energy of remembering, oh yeah, this is about nurturing and providing for the greater good. Jupiter returns are often about renewal of belief or changing of beliefs or suddenly realizing that our beliefs have been changing and now acknowledging them. So this is the time where we may suddenly find ourselves, the collective beliefs around this Cancerian energy and about the way that America has been in regards to its Cancerian energy changing. It may be about a big personal breakthrough with the natal chart, with America itself. America may be having a big personal breakthrough moment as Jupiter has its return. This could be the opening of doors, new opportunities coming, the expansion of the heart at the center of the American soul. That's what I expect to be happening. Who knows? Cancer can go dark at times. Believe me, I am a Cancer. I know that I can do that too. Sometimes Cancer gets a little overly reactive, especially when we have these Uranian energies happening so close to us. It can get very overprotective and overreactive emotionally. But with Jupiter returning to its position here, it sort of tells me that this is going to be activating the positive aspects of these, of the benefic Jupiter. Jupiter usually does good. It is usually a good actor. You may not always feel that it's good when you're being expanded to your boundaries. It doesn't always feel good as you're being forced to push past your own boundaries. That doesn't feel great. It's sort of like shedding your skin. This is, of course, the year of the snake. So we are shedding our skin, and the snake does not feel good when it's beginning to shed. It feels constricted inside of itself. So we're coming up against those boundaries. But Jupiter is trying to do its benefic good for us in this circumstance. And this Cancer energy is being renewed in its positive aspect. So whatever that Cancerian energy is, however it's going to manifest here this day and over the transit the next year that Jupiter will be spending in Cancer, it's probably going to be for the best, for its greatest good, whatever that means exactly. I don't know. I'm not going to make any big guesses, but I'm just trying to point out the energy that's happening here. It's probably good. And as the year goes on, Jupiter will continue its journey through Cancer. It will have a conjunction with the natal sun pretty soon, probably in July. It's going to go on to have a conjunction with natal Mercury and expand the communicative energy, the communion energy within that Cancer, within the natal chart of America. And then it goes on to expand the North Node, which is looking to move towards new territory, looking to move towards its destined purpose, which we know it's going to look towards that Sagittarian higher ideals of itself. It's going to renew and look back, because Jupiter is always connected to Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is always looking towards its highest ideals in order to affect change and seek freedom for itself. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. As we progress through all of this, Neptune comes into Gemini on July 7th, so very shortly after. I mean, we're going to be feeling Uranus coming up to Gemini even on July 4th. We're feeling it now, really. And so that energy as Uranus enters Gemini is going to feel, all of these are going to feel like tectonic shifts in energy if you're sensitive to them, which you probably are. You may be feeling them unconsciously. But these are all major shifts. There's the cardinal energy shift of Jupiter moving into Cancer. There's the cardinal energy shift of Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries. And then there's this mutable energy shift as Uranus enters Gemini. So let's talk about that for a moment. So Gemini is the sign of communication. It's about how it mediates the communication between things in the cosmos. Where Aries is the individuator, it creates individuals, it establishes I am. It is Gemini which then takes the multiplicity that Aries creates, the multiplicity of I ams, and it mediates the communication between those things. So Gemini is about communication. It is also about the communication between the self, because you have a dialogue of your inner self and your higher self, the ego and the unconscious, the superego and the ego. You have these dialogues between yourself in Gemini. And Gemini is also all the modes of communication, telecommunications, and technologies. Both Gemini and Uranus kind of have their influence over technology and innovation and drive towards liberty through communication and through, well, sudden changes. Because Gemini likes a lot of multiplicity in its life. It likes a lot of bright, shiny objects, always moving between things, never really focusing its energy for very long on any one thing. So it's always moving. It's always moving. It's very mercurial. It is ruled by Mercury. And Uranus is kind of a higher octave of Mercury. It's just a sort of, it's taking that Mercury energy and it's taking it to a higher level. And so expect to have vast, sudden changes very rapid changes in technology, in telecommunications, in the way we communicate, in AI, in all of these forms of innovation that are occurring right now. It's going to be very vast, rapid changes over the next couple of years as Uranus transits over Gemini and over the 7th house of the American natal chart. Big things are happening. Very often as Uranus enters a new sign, big major things can happen, like the Fukushima reactor event in Japan that happened the last time it moved into when Uranus moved into Taurus. You can probably expect to see some big catastrophic change in things as Uranus moves into Gemini. So look around sometime between July 4th and July 7th or the 8th, something major, probably major energy shifts causing some sort of catastrophic event. So much going on here. All right, well, that's a lot to think about. That's a lot to put in your bag and think about. Get ready for this, or keep your eye out, I should say, because I don't like to make predictions. I just like to look at the energy and see how they play out. And it's going to be very interesting to watch how the confluence of these combative energies, this complete opposite of energies of expansion and contraction, of dissolution and structure, and combative Mars energy and sudden change energy of Uranus play out in both the natal chart of America, the natal chart of Donald Trump, and the transits that are going on June 4th, and the big Jupiter return on America's birthday. It's crazy, crazy stuff. Stay safe and watch what's happening. Put your predictions in the comments if you want to, or put your observations in the comments if you're watching these later, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.